I work with the Marine Resources Council as a coastal restoration coordinator, and Audubon of Martin County had hired the Marine Resources Council to remove the exotic invasive species on the sites in Four Rivers that belong to Audubon. During that process, this EcoArt of the Treasure Coast apprentice mentor program sort of got started, and that site seemed to be a very good site that was manageable and controllable, and had a degraded shoreline and an infestation of exotic invasives. And if we were going to restore habitat in a suburban community, this would be a very good project site to do it on, in that it was a drainage swale as well as infested, exotic invasive infested property, and a spoil retention zone from a canal construction project that had happened in the 80s. We've had wonderful collaboration with Audubon and with the Marine Resources Council and with virtually every environmental agency you could name in the state of Florida. I think the idea of restoring shorelines in particular, but in restoring habitat in these coastal suburban communities, is something that resonates very well with the environmental rehabilitation community.
We selected the trees and the areas based upon the habitat for the individual species that we're trying to attract. And so the wood duck box is naturally over water. The area for the owls is over kind of an open area where the owls are going to be able to see the little mice and rats and snakes and all that sort of thing. The flycatcher box is in a kind of an open area where indeed there's more apt to be insects that they're going to be able to prey on.
I work for the Marine Resources Council as a habitat restoration contractor. I'm also an eco-artist. And so when Jesse focused on these sites for his aerial architecture project, oftentimes when he came by to do site surveys or site work, I was on hand. So when he was choosing the trees to hang his bird structures in, I helped him clear away a lot of the invasive and native vines just so he could get access to it. One of the things a lot of people don't understand, I think, is that the rate of invasion of these species, the Brazilian pepper, the Australian pine, is very extreme. When we get to these sites, you can't walk on them, unless you're very, very good at the limbo. You really can't get access. You need to blaze a trail with chainsaws and machinery just to get into the site. And so that means all the native trees and animals have been pushed out, almost exclusively sometimes, a complete monoculture of invasive species.
Well, the first step was really to get to know the birds. I went over to Possum Long Nature Center, which is the headquarters of Martin County Audubon Society, and talked with Greg about the birds that we would be working with, and right then and there I started doing some sketching. The bird houses sort of started to take form. Through Greg's guidance, we were able to come up with forms that were to spec, scientifically to spec, for a traditional wooden nest box, and I was able to use my traditional technique for working with clay, which is a very heavy sort of textural technique. Elementary art students at Bridges Montessori were excited to join the EcoArt process, and their creations became the design model for the project's community educational programs. Tim Brown, the Director of Education at Treasure Coast Wildlife Hospital, joined the team as bird safety specialist and offered the young eco-artist an up-close and personal experience with some of his feathered friends. Managing Director Pam Hopkins welcomed the project's need for a primitive pit fire to Audubon's Possum Lawn Nature Center in East Stewart as a 2-day community event.
I wonder where those red flames went. That was cool.
Bob Matheson and other Four Rivers community members joined us for the installation of the first 2 nests in the pouring rain. Greg Braun and Franz Carr cautiously scared the ladders after being passed up the heavy and cumbersome nest sculptures.
Me.
You can't even. That's an insult to call it a box.
A key part of this is going to be, after Jesse is done, we've got Audubon folks who are going to be coming in and doing the monitoring. We want to make sure that it is successful in attracting the kind of species that we want. The mission of Audubon is to conserve and restore native ecosystems, and this relationship with the eco art of the Treasure Coast is just a perfect example of how we can work to do that.
Good.